Greetings in the Lord Jesus. It's I'm happy to be with you again today. And I say this all the time. It's an honor to spend this time with you, and I make every effort to be here and to share with you what the Lord has to share. So, greetings in the Lord Jesus Christ. And the Word calls him a prophet, and he is a prophet. And as Mary called him, Rabboni, he's a teacher. And he teaches, and thankfully he takes the time for a simple Cajun to teach me these last few years. And as I've said, I try to teach you the same way he teaches me. And for many of you, the Lord spoke in parables in his time. He said, those that have ears to listen, they'll understand. And those that don't, they may not. For a long time, if you've seen me on other network or other broadcasts, and since we've gone our own in July of last year, I give out words, and if it's a public figure and I make a quote, I often use their names. It's public domain. But other than that, I've always kind of a policy I kept to myself is I don't use names. And I like parables, but when the Lord speaks to me, he speaks very clearly. He shows me visually who some of these people are. I know who they are. And yet, one of the things that he told me years ago, and he said, son, I trust you. And so with that trust comes, responsibility to keep the things to myself that he doesn't allow me to share with Luke or Kimberly and publicly, and then other times I can. So today, let me get started with welcoming in our wisdom warriors and those from around the nation and around the world that pray and intercede and listen to the teachings and these last few weeks on the prophetic for 2022, going into 2023 and 2024. I have, those that follow me, I've seen into the spiritual realm almost all my life, and I never spoke of it because I thought something was wrong with me. Maybe I was some type of freak or something, until recently, and I realized it was a gift. I've always liked intercession and praying and teaching, and I guess that's my first love, is to go back teaching. So when I give these prophetic words, I do that because the Lord wants me to, and he wants you to know that as he was then, he is now. He knows everything. And so I believe as these days become darker and darker, he's wanting those that are the true prophetic to keep his people informed, and as best we can share, what he allows us to share is up to date because of the events that are happening. I had planned on teaching on finishing up the streams in the desert and starting other teachings. And since I've been a better patient, since my nurse, my beautiful bride, has had me resting a lot, I spend even more time with the Lord. And he wanted me, he said, I want you to speak one more time about the events that are happening, because they're happening so rapidly. And it goes back to things that he disclosed in November and December, and even recently that I shared with you, those that I could. And so he wanted me today to give you an update, and I'm not going to try to limit it to 50 minutes or 60 minutes like I've done. If we go longer, then I hope and pray that you watch. If you don't, then I understand. But go back and watch these several times. There is a lot of information and data, and that's just a small amount that he's allowed me to share with you, that I love you and I care for you. Again, those that want to reach the National War Council, Post Office Box 931, Argyle, Texas 76226. So you can reach us there with your prayer request, and we pray over every one of them. And if you want to contact us for other reasons, you can reach us there. So I have my drink, I have my handkerchief, and I said, if it gets too bad today, I'll stop talking and proceed further another time. So for those who follow me, thank you for your grace and understanding. I have notes everywhere. This was my old scratch book, and I still have notes in it that he's having me cover. This is the new one that Kimberly put out for me. And these are the notes that some of these I'll cover. Just in the last, it says 124. I don't even know what today is. So I'm going to take up where some updates that the Lord wanted to give to me. And let me say this, and I said this about the ruler in Jordan. The Lord really doesn't change his mind. He's not concerned about what you say or don't say or what you want done or not done. He sets up kings and he removes kings. And the other, he has said, this is the year of justice, 2022. And those that try to hinder that, all I can say is you have to be careful. There are two of them that I didn't say anything about, and he didn't. But once they start speaking up and talking, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I've said before, he's not a tame lion, and he is a consuming fire. He will eat you alive. And I'm talking about those people that mock him and ridicule him, and one in particular that seems to fancy murder. For me, and like I said, don't write me. I believe that life begins at inception. And that life in the womb, as he told Jeremiah, I knew you in the womb, and I had ordained you to be a prophet. So for me, in the word that I look at, that's when life begins. And so when you go and take that, to me, that's murder. It's interesting that they allow abortion. But if I understand correctly, and the lawyers can correct me on this, that if you are in an accident and you happen to, that there's a pregnant lady that is, her life is taken and she's with child, then you are charged with double homicide. So I've never understood that, and I'll get into what some of these people say politically, and I'll get to that. Hollow Joe, and I'm gonna cover the prophetic word on Hollow Joe that, the Lord gave to me before. Let me do that now, and then I'll cover these recent events. This goes back to August of last year, and he was a nominee at that point. I won't comment on the election, but so this individual was sitting on a wall in the form of Humpty Dumpty. As we watched together, the Lord and I were watching, the caricature of this individual as Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. And when that happened, and I saw this caricature of this person, I'd remembered this from childhood and knew that a rhyme went with it. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty fell off, all those things. As he fell, the Lord said, and I'm quoting the Lord about this individual, and you will see that the Lord, he knows. And so he, quoting the Lord, this is a hollow man. He is like a reed blown by the wind of contrivance. I have that word contrivance. We'll look at it in a minute. A corrupt puppet controlled by evil puppet masters that seek to destroy the eagle, United States of America, the eagle. I am, all capitalized, a consuming fire, and in my righteous indignation, I was cast down. This is an interesting word he uses, this infirm deceiver, for the third time. As the vision was ending with a nominee shattered on the ground, handlers and what appeared to be witches and warlocks were trying to put him together again. I think I said in that one, all the king's men and all the king's horses, or all the king's horses, all the king's men. The Lord said, watch Humpty Dumpty from the looking glass. And later I realized it was Alice in Wonderland, and I had, and I remembered I wrote that word inshallah, if Allah wills, that this individual used in one of the debates. So That's to that side. Prophetic word on Joe, January 24th. And so we go to, I guess today, the 22nd, January 22nd at 11 a.m. Cover these. This is a actual picture of the please excuse me, of the troops that are aligned on the border of the Ukraine. I said that, I think 2 teachings ago, I said there were 175,000 troops that were there, not only armor, weapons. It said families of U.S. Embassy, this is Luke provided this for me, in Ukraine, ordered to begin evacuating as soon as today. Next week, the State Department is also expected to encourage Americans to begin leaving Ukraine by commercial flights, and that's in this same quote. So he's today supposed to pull out. I'll tell you what he's doing in just a second. These are shipments, by the way, that arrived. I'm going to tell you this so that you can understand how Washington works. So this shipment that we're looking at, this shipment includes around 200,000 pounds of ammunition and weapons for frontline defenders. The U.S. Embassy hailed the shipment, and it's in KYIV, delivered by airplane as part of, here we go, $2.7 billion of investments made in Ukraine. What they do in D.C. and the belt is too little, too late at this point, and yet I'll tell you how that's changing, is they want to make sure that those large contractors, and I would mention their names, but we'll just say large contractors, they want, they call it beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. They don't care who's at war. They're going to provide all of that. So if you deliver this really too late and they use it, it just means that more orders will go to them. So 2.7 billion will be distributed among those who make ammunition and others in the United States. When it says a contrivance, frail, a reed blown by contrivance, Webster says something contrived, made up, a mechanical device, which is not, but a clever plan, a schemer. That's what he's a part of, the schemer. So now this one says tensions escalate, and Humpty Dumpty's poll numbers are in the dumpster. And it's almost like a former president that was having problems with an intern to distract Americans. Suddenly there were rockets shot off it in the Middle East, so that we would be distracted by that. I know there's a Wag the Tail or some type of movie on that. I've never seen it. So when your poll numbers are that low, and I can show you some of the other stuff that's happening, and I told you about the casket, and your whole party you're taking down. They don't care about war. They care about power. They don't care about American servicemen, women. They care about power. And so if this happens, it won't be because this weakling wants to do it. It'll be because of poll numbers and keeping that position. What he won't keep, he's not going to be there. But that's what they do. So that was on the Russian bear that I showed you maybe a month ago. I said, they're part of this drums of war plan of the dragon. But the dragon is now looking at the Olympics, and as I've said, all those athletes coming in and nations represented from around the world, which is going to be a great opportunity for them for a nefarious deed. But they don't want to be forgotten. I told you last time that Taiwan, that anyone that supports Taiwan is under the death penalty at the Dragon. And so what they're doing, and this is Jack Dutton 124, Actual picture of our warships, by the way. Chinese military jets flying near Taiwan as U.S. distracted by the Ukraine. This is the way it happens when you are weak and show weakness to other nations. And you can believe others are going to join in. And the Turkey Buzzard Nation and the one with all the pyramids, they're not our friends. And let me say this, it's in my notes. I've said this, I don't know, on a teaching before. There were several in NATO that are members of the alliance. They're not our friends. And towards the end, which now, towards the end times, several of those are going to have their allegiance more to the bear than they are to NATO, and especially the United States, especially one of those nations that has a pipeline that is a joint effort between them and the bear, money, power. So it's more important to them about money and power than it is about an alliance. And you can see they never paid their share of NATO and never intended to until our 45th president, put pressure on NATO to pay more. So I have in my notes, payoff for major contractors, $2.7 billion, too little, too late. China will flex its military power, Taiwan. Domestic weakness, defund the police. And part of that, I said that the Lord has shown me trains and things that they were just looting. But it was more organized than that. They would pull up trucks like moving vans, and they had tools to break off any locks that were on, and they would back up to these rail cars and just unload them and then take off and sell that on the black market. And the same thing with looters, because they'd leave some of the things. They got in and out, and then looters took over. And so this is from a Twitter account. And this is, I believe, just 2 days ago. And you wonder about, I've said our supply chain, it's not an accident, it's on purpose. When you have the mandates they have in place and people cannot go and load and unload and show up to work, you're going to have supply chain problems. And I had given that from the Lord before about empty shelves and unemployment. But this was something that Luke had provided for me, and I wanted to show this to you. This is just the last day or two. This is on those trains, just stuff that is there. Brand new tires, brand new set of tires. I'll tell you what this is, and then I'll read this. This is from this individual, quoting him, "Keep hearing of train burglaries in Los Angeles, California, on the scanner." So listen, a police scanner. So went to Lincoln Heights to see it all. And there's more. There's looted packages as far as the eye can see. And he mentions these by name. It's Amazon, UPS boxes, unused COVID test, fishing lures, different real expensive pins, cargo containers left busted open on the trains. So when they're left open, others come in. This is from a guy I don't do Twitter, so John Schreiber, I believe his name. This is interesting, this one. Away from my pictures, I thought I ran out of colored ink today for my pictures. Maybe some of you be happy, but so if they're not just right, my pen printer just about gone out of the ink. Anyway, so this is one that shows up and says, "Your package is on the way." We several of those things. And it said it could be a delay. That little thing right there says delay. It's delayed because it might be sitting out here or it's in one of those trucks. So you're not going to get your packages. So this is part of the supply chain disaster that's happening. So not only are there no borders, but when you defund the police, or when you have lawlessness in your state, your cities look like they do, and train areas. And when you're the liberal governor that don't know how you survived a recall, you blame it on everybody but yourself. So that was that one. The year of justice. I wasn't going to comment on this, but the Lord said, you start speaking and boasting, the Lord will. And so this is something that he had shown me before. I had not released it. And he said, now I want you to talk about it. Okay. Supreme Court. Let me show you the picture first. The year of justice. This is January 20th. January the 20th, 2022. And I'll read it. Just a few days ago, Justice Sonia Sotomayor expressed outrage at her conservative Supreme Court colleagues Thursday afternoon after the 6 right-wing jurists, I don't know about that, went one step further in attacking the constitutional guarantee of abortion. Tell you my feeling about abortion. Quoting, that was a quote too. This case is a disaster for the rule of law and a grave disservice to women in Texas who have a right to control their own bodies. This is in her dissent. Sotomayor writes, I will not stand by silently as a state continues to nullify this constitutional guarantee. I dissent. End of quote. And further in that, she says, a complicated private bounty hunter scheme that violates nearly 50 years of this court's precedents. For those that watch me, I want you to, I hope you're taking notes, my Bereans. This I have taught, and I have taught, and I have taught, and I will continue to. What she is doing is following Saul Alinsky and the rules for radicals, and I will show that to you. But you can see that these are the rules. But interesting enough, well, those are the cores. These are the 12 rules. Okay, you can go Google that and find it. Number 5. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. It also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concession. Pretty crude, rude, and mean, huh? They want to create anger and fear. Well, that's exactly what they're doing, or she is. You can believe the true eye in the sky, the Almighty. He sees everything. He knows everything. So when and I'll get more into this background of this individual, ridicule, Number 12 is pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. 12th rule for radicals. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. Well, she kind of missed that one, but she's going after a whole state. People hurt faster than institutions. This is cruel, but very effective. Direct, personalized criticism and ridicule works. What is this person doing? On the rules for radicals. All of them are on the same playbook. And this is, who appointed her? This is when the left, the liberals, same thing with Hollow Joe, when they start turning on you, you need to be real careful. Because especially there's a particular network that begins with an M and has that, initials in it. Most liberal. I don't know who this person is, never listened to him, but Bill Maher torches Sotomayor for botching COVID facts. Quoting him, excuse me, that's really ignorant for a Supreme Court justice. I'll show you in a minute where they do not let facts get in the way of their rhetoric. So you have to 6 liberals. These 3 I know about. This is a scale that was drawn up. I had it put on here. The one that was there before was a witch. Very took that elixir stuff. Didn't help. So over on the right, the most conservative, and on the left are obviously the liberals. This is the court. I wasn't going to talk on this, but this is on abortion. Let me cover this one. If you had seen the broadcast on a hag and a werewolf, it was a vision that the Lord had shown me of a private meeting in a private setting where this demonic power was threatening put high principalities and authority, Abaddon the Destroyer, of the 9. Didn't have to do the 9, they just the 6. And they were being threatened with life of their loved ones. And I had mentioned a Supreme Court justice that had gone on a duck hunting trip. But if you look at the witch and the werewolf, meeting I saw them in, this thing was a hidden door where things came in, but witch and a warlock, spiritual of the individual that was there threatening. So let me cover this individual, and I won't go too much into it. I talked about this before. The Belizean Grove, Belizean, the Belizean Grove, invitation only for women's social club. It's not a social club. Founded by a lady named Susan, a Westinghouse broadcasting executive, and some others. I'll share that, more of that in just a minute. That's the counterpart to the one that meets in California that worships the owl and sacrifices beneath that 30-foot owl. I'll talk about that in just a minute. It's in Belize where they meet. One of the places, they meet in different places, but this is where they meet. So on abortion, before I finish up with the societies, I want to let some facts get in the way of their fabrications and their talking points. And like I said, I'm not going to hurry. These are facts, and this is 2022. Some of this is going to go into 2023 and even 2024. I'm giving a quote. This is Dr. Carter Woodson, a founding member of what is now called the Association for the Study of African American History. Announced the first Negro, N-E-G-R-O, History Week in 1926, selecting February because it held the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, 2 icons in the history of Blacks in America. I'm still quoting. The celebration grew to a month-long observation in 1976. It's the year I was born again. Beginning with Gerald Ford, every president has issued a proclamation honoring February as Black History Month. While many positive accomplishments by African Americans are now brought to our attention every February, and they should be. I love my and I don't think I'm as black, but black friends, I just look at them as friends. I don't distinguish my friends between color. Same way in the Marine Corps. We just had fellow Marines. So every February, there are those that exploit this annual event to further their own political agenda. Oh, you can believe that. And I had mentioned Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and some other race baiters, which is actually counter to the historic advancement of blacks in American history. So here's some facts that might get in the way for that particular party. And I said, I'm not Republican nor Democrat, don't trust either one of them. But for those that are in the Democratic Party, and especially the leadership that are bought and paid for, one of them that funds them is Planned Parenthood. So let me continue this article. Among them is Planned Parenthood. The nation's largest abortion provider has done a masterful job of creating a false impression that its programs somehow benefit the Black community. A recent example of its success is Charity Navigator's inclusion of Planned Parenthood in a list of charities that promote Black health education, rights, and community development. Here we go. Abortion in America has contributed to the greatest decline in Black population since the first Black slaves arrived in the Americas in the 1600s. Not according to Jim, according to the U.S. Census data, there were 18,800,000 Black American citizens in 1960. Since Roe v. Wade was legalized in 1973, abortion has killed an estimated 20 million Black babies, more than the entire Black population of 1960. Only in a world of twisted logic could organizations and individuals working tirelessly to save Black lives from abortion be called racist for their efforts. Only in a world of twisted logic can it be acceptable for legislators to use the race of those killed to justify their destruction. End of quote by this article by Dr. Carter Woodson. Sometimes facts get in the way, but when you think of the 20 million Black babies, I grew up listening to soul music, Black music. I can name the artist. Love that Washington Grover on love the saxophone. I'm not much of a music person, but I did grow up listening to Black music by Black musicians, Smokey Robinson, all the, just some really great ones. So here we go by this particular person. The case that a disaster. Quoting this, Supreme Court nominee Sonia Sotomayor last year's accepted an invitation to join the Belize Grove, an elite but little known women's only group. I'm going to have all of these notes. There's 15 pages of notes. I'm only going to talk about a few, but I'll have these posted to members section of the National War Council. Most of these, there's a lot in here, and I'll mention that one other time. Highlighted this. Sotomayor, a federal appellate judge at the time, gave a presentation on the challenges the judiciary, all the judiciary, faces in maintaining its independence from the legislative and executive branches. Really? That is something else. Quoting her friend that brought her in, it was really about how you need to have the balance of power, and that the judiciary needed to have the ability to really be itself and not be influenced politically, said Grove member Kathy Allen, the chief executive officer of a financial firm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They do a lot of talking, but they don't back it up. It's one of those things, do as I say, but not as I do. And we've seen that from the mask mandate over and over and over again. They'll walk right by managers into a restaurant because they're a senator. And while conspiracy theorists have cast the Bohemian Grove as a cog, that's another group. I'm quoting this, so I mentioned it. And then she talked about the Belizean Grove, this one, nonpartisan. I'll quote her, "There's nothing nefarious about it." Oh, sure. That's probably the same way they think over at this grove, by the way. So this is what they do there, and I've taught on it. This is the owl that they offer sacrifices at, Bohemian Grove, and it's of a particular society. And I put down here because I know I was invited at one time to one of the most secret societies in the world, not because I had the financial backing, but I believe it was at a time, and I actually did it twice. I have all the notes twice, and I believe it was Satan wanting me to compromise, and they promised all kinds of things. Well, one of the things you should know, you do not leave a secret society. It's almost like being in one of those acronym agencies. You don't leave those, especially if you're, and let's say if you're like a 007, for example. So on that, let me contrast and I'll move on. What a decent judge says about Israel. Excuse me again. My apologies. What a decent judge. And this particular judge says about Israel. I will spell his name, Mogoening. This is from January 23rd. Had refused to apologize, and I'll read that, saying South Africa's judges should not be censored, gagged, or muzzled. This is from World Israeli News Staff, and I'm quoting this article. South Africa's Judicial Conduct Appeals Committee issued a statement on Thursday giving the former Chief Justice, Mogen, M-O-G-E-N, 10 days to make an unconditional apology for becoming involved in a political controversy. He said something positive about Israel. Sorry. Quoting the former justice. I'm under an obligation as a Christian to love Israel, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's actually scripture. Which means the peace of Israel, and I cannot, as a Christian, do anything other than love and pray for Israel. Because I know hatred for Israel by me and for my nation can only attract unprecedented curses upon our nation. This is what he stated in 2020 when he was given a speech. And they went back, somebody didn't listen to it, and said oh, that's terrible. And so they brought him up before this commission, and the commission said, you know what, you got 10 days to give an unconditional apology. This is by Breitbart, by the way, news, quoting Breitbart, Joel Pollard on January 23rd. Many South Africans, like Christians in other African countries, have positive views of Israel. But the country's left-wing political elite, does that sound familiar? Deeply influenced by Soviet allegiances. That's communism. I've taught on it. During the Cold War, as well as an influential Muslim minority and current intellectual fashion, is basically anti-Israel. So compare what this person who says she's no longer a member of the Belizean Grove and this individual, what he had to say. Cloning. I talked about that, and there is so much more I could talk about, but I'm not. I want to thank Bonnie R. I didn't know what it was. I remember seeing it in The Lord showed to me. I didn't know what it was. And as I said, I believe last time I was on the broadcast, this thing looked like it had all types of parts attached to it. He was showing me different things about cloning. And so she sent a picture, and I'm very thankful. And look, it said this, excuse me, the scholar said, "Oh, Daddy, I know what that is." So I showed him this picture. He said, "Well, that's nothing. If you see my presentation," he makes his own presentation. He goes, "That's an easy one." This is the thing that washed up on shore. It's called the Montauk monster. I think off of New York. So thank you, Bonnie. When I talk about these things and people ask why I speak in parables, anytime I've talked, I have intel people, I have agency people, I have other ministries, people that watch every word I say. And it's interesting that there are doctors, there are scientists that watch me. And this lady heard what I had to say. I just described it, and she sent it. So I'm very thankful. Volcanoes. Talk just a second about Yellowstone National Park again, then Israel. This is the picture there in Yellowstone National Park. This is a geographic area. Here's the URL. I'll read this to you. This is something that Luke pointed out to me. I did a broadcast on the 20th, and 2 days later, on the 22nd, Luke came to me and said, Daddy, he watches whatever those things are on broadcast, and people make comments. He said someone commented that there was a 2.8 magnitude tremor in Yellowstone. And so he said, Daddy, that's the Lord confirming what you said. Well, that's the Lord confirmed what he said. I just passed it on. I wanted to read this from a rabbi. His name is Adam Berkowitz. His article, January 23rd, 2022, he goes back to some historic data and makes a comment. Special attribute to end of days. That's what the rabbi says. A recent wave of hundreds of small tremors, about at that time, centered around Yellowstone raised fears of the threat of a supervolcano in the heartland of America. One of the seismologists says it is set to hit sooner rather than later. Several rabbis explain that this is terrifying prediction. Yes, may not be as terrifying as scientists think, since it is, after all, a prophesied stage in the messianic process. Unlike the Grand Canyon, the product of 17 million years of patient aquatic erosion, the centerpiece of Yellowstone Park is a 40-mile wide, it's called a caldera crater, result of a sudden cataclysmic geological explosion 630,000 years ago. I don't know how they know that, but I'm quoting the rabbi. Internationally renowned physicist Michio, M-I-C-H-I-O, his last name K-A-K-U, described the situation at Yellowstone as a sleeping Godzilla that if it erupts at its maximum eruption, it could literally tear the guts out of the center of the United States of America, reducing the country to a total of 30 states with a gaping hole where much of the Midwest used to be. End of quote. And he described it as a sleeping giant. So let me make a comment on that. This is the same day. See right up here. Sign of the times. Third earthquake in 2 weeks felt in Israel. That was January 23rd. When I mention about Yellowstone, it's not to have people panic or in fear, not only live in that area, but the surrounding states. It's simply what the Lord has told me, shown me, and it's not for right now. What I said in the broadcast was there would be tremors starting more often in Yellowstone, and they would be signs of what the Lord has spoke, not only of the heavens, but the word that he had given for me to release to you. When this, well, let's say, if it happens, I'll put it that way for you, it's going to be devastating. I had a picture of, I don't think I printed off, Mount St. Helens, and you saw what that did. You could see it from space. So I think that was in 1980. Maybe that was the last broadcast I showed to you. So these are quotes from January 23rd of Israel and of this rabbi. And then on the 22nd is when Luke came and said, Daddy, this, they just had one. So now, baby factories get into several parts and just organized by household name and the alphabet agencies. Black magic is where HRC and WJC voodoo went, and the most powerful witch doctor in Haiti put them through the ritual. And by the way, at that time is when this witch doctor said that 2016 this particular person would become president. I guess they didn't check with God. And during their Haitian relief project, WJC introduced GWB, former president, to the same witch doctor, and he went through the ritual. And someone had written to me, so I'm covering this. I had mentioned this elixir, and the Lord, I didn't know what elixir was. I looked it up. I know what I had seen when he took me to that lab with babies and right over. This thing is called ADRENO chrome, adrenochrome. They call it the white rabbit elixir. Is pursued by black-hearted, black dark state elites. And I've said the difference between the dark state and the evil state is dark state, mostly witches, warlocks, all of those, that they have vowed to Satan. The next step in that is the evil, and that is you have to take the satanic blood oath, and it binds your children, grandchildren, and others for the rest of their lives. Unless, and this is one of the notes the Lord had wanted me to tell you, watch these elites that are worth billions and billions. I'm not going to give you their names, but some of this, you have to do like he does me. You have to research on your own. Watch for the divorce rate among them. And it doesn't matter what they say it's for. When they are dark state, husband and wife, there's no way to keep that from the wife or the husband. It depends on which one's in it. But when you, I'm speaking mainly of the men that are warlocks or high priest. When you move from dark state to evil state, you take that satanic oath. Your children, grandchildren, and there are many mothers, not many, but the ones that you'll see, they were part of that. They enjoyed the lifestyle, the luxury, the wealth, the servants, the different Plato mansions. You step over that line and you start looking at two of their children, only two they have or three, and suddenly, they realize that both of them are going to be bound by that. You'll see that they'll bail. I mean, there's divorce. It doesn't mean that they'll be completely away from the consequences of what they've done, because these are very evil people. But that binding, and I said, this is what the Lord told me. He said, when you're husband and wife and you take that, it says one. And so you bind both of you. And if those that have, though I don't recommend books very often, read the book, The List, and you'll see that even a woman that this person wanted to marry was affected by that type of blood covenant oath. So watch for divorces among the very elite of the elite as a sign that they're in dark state. And I showed you that cloud that time when they were trying to chop down the tree. There was a whole cloud of them, and I knew who they were up in that cloud. That was the dark state, different than the deep state. The deep state, they're bad people, and some of them are very evil, but they do it for sex, power, greed, all these other things. Deep state is different because you're controlled by evil state. So there's two different types of, three types actually of elixir, and I haven't gone into those. This one is called the White Rabbit. There is another one that is from Aleister Crowley, and I will have that on those notes. And then there's one that I saw in that is the ingredients on these are disgusting. I don't even want to say it on the air of some of these things. Some call it the witch's brew, and they call it different things. You'll see it. I don't even want to mention, but let me get to some of these slides. So, baby factories. These are not things I want to cover, but the pedophilia, the sex rings, and the Lord had told me that this Grisla Maxwell, whatever her name was, that was a girlfriend and partner of Jeffrey Epstein, who would plead innocent, thinking she could, they could pay off the right people and she'd be set free because of what she knows. But that didn't happen. And the Lord had told me she's going to go to trial and she can be found guilty. And from claiming her innocence, then she's going to start singing and offering anything she can to keep from going to prison or to lighten that term. So those things are in that, and the Lord said, I want you to talk more about it so that my people know that none of this is a surprise to me. This is not a shock. These are not the prophetic words that somebody's going to get up and read a few pages and sit back down. It's not what he does, and that's not what he wants me to teach you. I want those that follow me in the Bereans, I want you to be educated and well-grounded with facts, not, I hear people say something and they say, well, how do you know that? I say, well, my pastor told me. I don't want you to ever do that with me. I want you to do it because you looked at it. You search for yourself. You search the word, God's word, and you did some research. This is a chart, by the way, of why don't I provide these on membership? I've learned the hard way. They'll somehow capture that, take a photo of it, and what I've shown in my PowerPoints will show up in another way, and I'm sure they can stop this video and do the same thing, but I do the best I can at it. This is a well-known acronym agency. It's a household name. appear. U.S., not the Mossad or the Israeli or one of the, this is, although they work together with all of them. So let me read you some of these, how it chart. This is what I was telling you about the satanic elite bloodlines. The royal family, the monarch programming, what they do, how they marry, intermarry. The satanic ritual abuse. Why am I mentioning this? I'll tell you why. Here's that elixir, that chrome. I have no idea what walnut sauce is. They won't look at that. Pedophilia, blackmail method. I tell you that they're going to find a location where he has files, and they're going to be like those J. Edgar Hoover files of videos on people around the world that you would recognize in an instance. Others you may not. There'll be directors or something in Hollywood that most of us don't know their names, but to blackmail them. And if you've done something in your past and you're sitting one of the 9, they're going to use that. We'll talk about this in a minute. Hollywood celebrities. Human sacrifice. Baby factories. That baby factory within that particular site was for the lab where they use stem cell and other parts into that concoction that they had that extends life, or they think it extends life. And I said that last week, the elixir of life. By the way, the same, and I had mentioned this to Luke, and I said, I hadn't talked about this, but the Lord has shown it to me, I guess in 2018, 2019. And I said, son, I hadn't talked about the shot, the vaccine. I said, I want you to know that part of that, now that I'm talking about this, is used in that particular shot. And he said, Daddy, that's on the internet. There are people that talk about that. I said, well, then they're talking about it, but maybe a lot of people don't know that stem cell was used, and part of that with all of those that have come up with a vaccine. Those are just some of the things that the Lord tells you, and you have to keep to yourself, and it wears on you. It's not something I, as a kid growing up, wanted to do, but that's the Lord's choice, and I love him and appreciate him. Child porn industry, I don't know what they call it, snuff films or something like that. Child sex trafficking, missing children, the red market. Another one is cannibalism, and I'll get into it. You'll see this. Do people eat the parts? Yes, they eat parts. Big thing to have a satanic ritual and eat the heart of a baby. And they, for their annual renewal into the satanic bloodline, they have to provide from 2 different people the female organ, body part, as part of that ritual, along with the blood of a baby and some other things. Elixir, so that as I said, I don't like these things. When he took me and showed me heaven and the structure, it was the greatest 6 months I thought of my life. And then let a few months go by, and I put a lot of the teaching down, and he said, now you're ready to go and look at the other side. I said, no, I don't want to see that, Lord. I had enough of that dealing with exorcism and stuff when I went through that 2-year period of time. Excuse me. Actual room, all the black magic stuff. Same thing with that. No, by the way, this person down below, that's the sign for the goat. By the way, the satanic Bipomet, BIP, HOMET. The principality is worshipped by those that have that secret handshake and so many others. But you can see bats and different parts that they use for different potions. The one that is used by that and those to extend life includes stem cell and some other parts of the baby that is combined, and they sit in these special chairs that have like electricity, currents, and also sound. And then they also wear this hat looking thing, but they get intravenously these. I taught them this. This is not new. This goes back. You look at Molech and Baal. Bringing your child, throwing it in. This thing had a big hole in the center of it where a fire was. And they would go in Valley Gehenna, hell, and they would throw their babies in there, and they would do that for their crops, or so their sheepfold and herds and others would be blessed, they thought. And so they would offer their little boy or little girl in there. That's how far back this goes. So doing it today for these people is no big deal. It's just increased since all those days. You say, oh, Jim, that can't be. I don't know where I'm at on my notes now. I will show you one more picture in just a second, but let me quote this from Judicial Watch. Like I said, I'm going to finish up. Don't know if many of you know Judicial Watch. I don't follow them, but when articles related to something I have given prophetically or otherwise, those are given to me. Judicial Watch is representing the Center for Medical Progress in a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act, request battle for information on a federally funded human organ harvesting project at the University of Pittsburgh. So when you see this, and there's URL for it, I'm quoting this. This is not something I made up. And so if the people at the University of Pittsburgh or your alumni get upset, don't get upset with Jim. I'm just reading this lawsuit. 252 pages of documents received thus far reveal shocking details of the university's quest to become a quote-unquote tissue hub for human organ harvesting. Tom Fitton, this person, I guess, who heads it up as the president, show that the NIH, federally funded, gave nearly $3 million to the University of Pittsburgh's quest to be a tissue hub for human fetal tissue ranging from 6 weeks to 42 weeks gestation. He added, by the way, 42 weeks is typically 2 weeks past a normal pregnancy. I won't go into all of this. I'll quote a couple others. He reminded viewers they're talking about organs from dead human beings obtained through elective abortions. End of quote. Now, the university proposal boasts of a lab equipped with a butcher boy bandsaw for sectioning bones, end of quote, as well as, quoting, a frozen section room that has a digital video feed to and from the operating rooms that allows for instantaneous discussions with the surgeons, as well as immediate show and tell for them all. Like an auction. You get to see it live. And if they're taking out a particular part of a aborted baby, you can watch that. This is the lawsuit. And say, we want that part, and they start the auction. I'm not going to go any further with that one. I have a couple more and I'll be through. This is from the Prime Minister of Australia. gave a speech to his parliament addressing the matter of child ritual abuse. When he spoke the following words, I'm quoting this, by the way, and you can see if you Google the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. This goes back to October of 2018, and he's addressing child ritual abuse, and he does that to the parliament. Quoting, why was our system of justice blind to injustice? Why has it taken so long to act? Why were other things more important than this, the care of innocent children? Why didn't we believe? Same today, there's so many, they don't want to know about it. I didn't want to know about it. Today, we dare to ask these questions and finally acknowledge and confront the lost screams of our children. I have shed many tears over this stuff. Most of the visions I see, and he shows me stuff, I'm weeping and usually curled up in a ball a lot. I don't share that. I hadn't shared it much with Luke or Kimberly. Nothing we can do now will right the wrong inflicted on our nation's children. Even after a comprehensive royal commission, which finally enabled the voices to be heard and the silence to be broken, we will all continue to struggle. We honor every survivor in this country. We love you, we hear you, and we honor you. I echo the same thing. If you're any age and you're contemplating abortion, my heart goes out for you. And I pray Holy Spirit would touch you. There are alternatives. As one survivor recently said to me, quoting the Prime Minister, it wasn't a foreign enemy who did this to us. This was done by Australians. Australians to Australians. Continue his quote. The crimes of ritual sexual abuse happened in schools, churches, youth groups, scout troops, orphanages, foster homes, sporting clubs, group homes, charities, and in family homes as well. When a child spoke up, they weren't believed, and the crimes continued with impunity. One survivor told me when he told a teacher of his abuse, the teacher then became his next abuser. Power and position exploit for evil, dark crimes. The Prime Minister's address was never brought to light by Americans' mainstream media, whose goal is just the opposite, keeping people in the dark about child ritual abuse in order to protect their corporate employers and political protectors while intimidating others not to report such abuse. Adrenochrome, I had this in the notes, you'll see it. I'm not going to go into what makes up these things. A couple more and I'm done. A night at the exclusive, they call it the Illuminati Ball, hosted by the Baron and Baroness de Rothschild. This was in 1972. Say, Jim, these are just, lower class people, or that happened somewhere else. Oh, these are the richest of the rich. These are the bloodline families, those that are in the evil state. Here's some pictures, and you may not want to look at this. I have a couple of them, and then tell you about one other individual. Not because I ever mentioned this person, but this person has challenged God, so don't do that. Picture of them gathering. All of them had different headdresses and costumes on. You can see that eye in the background. It's right here. That's our hostess for dinner tonight, wearing this thing. Eventually, she had to take this thing off and left the horns on so she could eat. They had a casket filled with stuff I won't even talk about, but this was another thing laid out. Here's on your table, by the way, when you go to eat, that's a baby in body parts. Here's one in near the, they call those things wet bars, body parts. Baby. 1972. Google it. Just Google the Rothschild, what they call it, the surrealist ball. You'll see it. I mean, I won't leave the pictures. I gave you a minute to look away from this one. And let's go into this last piece. See if I can find my notes where I'm at. I didn't want to, you know what, I'm not. Let me do this part because this individual wants to talk up and talk out. So this individual I'll talk about, this one in just a second. Actual picture. Always a goat head or something. Marina, and I blocked out this person's last name, has been a high-level witch and satanic high priestess since the 1970s. She is now 70 plus years old and looks much younger because of all the blood sacrifices she has been a part of and all the adrenochrome she has consumed from children, along with the dark magic rituals she performs daily. She is a spiritual advisor and friend to many Hollywood stars, and the power elite goes into a whole list of them. Obviously, Bill and HRC, and the one that I told you to make $200 billion off the vaccine. A lot of royal families, Hollywood, sports figures. I'd love to do a couple of these names because they are disgusting people, but I don't want you to read that. But I don't know how to do that. This is this person, by the way. Horns on her head and the snake on her head, over 70, and she meets with Hollywood celebrities and the elite, and she does this stuff daily. Come to the last. I was laying in bed, and when I ask the Lord about people, and there are people that are watching that know this, and certainly the scholar and my beautiful bride that I do love with all my heart. She's my nurse. I don't know how happy she is with me. I'll leave it at that. When I ask about people, I'll say this. The Lord showed me. I don't ask just indiscriminate and for interest. I have no curiosity. Kimberly, tell you, I am the opposite of curious. But if something comes and I'll ask him about somebody, then he'll show me. And I was telling somebody this weekend that we had a mutual friend, and I gave him the first time I met this person. He says, "Can you see and tell me about me?" And I said, "If I asked the Lord, standing right there next to us, would you?" And so I gave him the vision, and I could tell his face. He hated it. He said, "The Lord." But about 6 months later, he told me, he said, "I hate it when you told me that." I said, "I know." He said, "But every single thing that you said is accurate. I didn't like it, but I understand it and I accept it now. And I want to thank you." So I was laying in bed. He says, "I want to talk to you about this individual." I said, "Okay." And immediately showed me a vision. God, I don't want to, I like to see all these names on here. So let me, this person. It's hard for me to do this. See this? Baphomet. That's that thing I was telling you about. Same sign. Guess he's doing, like this at a news conference. This guy loves television, right? And I never said anything, and I never ask about him, even though I knew I'd seen the Dark State from years ago. So the Lord said, I'm not going to get into much detail, but I want to tell you about this individual. He, as I said, he uses movies. So he took me back to a movie scene and said, I want to tell you about this individual. I said, okay, Lord, you probably has a reason for it. So tell me about him. I'm looking, hopefully I can find him in all these notes. I'm sorry taking your time. I should have had this. Yeah, there it is in my notes. Kimono dragon. The saliva is poison. The teeth were needles. Kimono dragon. It was interesting. And I'll show you the picture he showed me, but then he said he's actually a kimono dragon. And I thought the word dragon is amazing. The Lord used that. And what it was, like I said, the teeth were needles. That was interesting. The eyes were yellow and the saliva was poisonous. So he told me a kimono dragon, but he had first shown me, flashed to me, this picture of in Mad Max where, see this thing right here, it's on this rock. It had two heads. And then later he told me it was this thing actually, but it was like this, but it was a deformed kimono dragon. One of them had yellow eyes. The teeth were like needles. The saliva was poison. And this other one had, I can't say it looked normal, but it had like the black eyes and it was wearing a mask with something written on it. Dragon, red dragon, highest paid individual in the government. If this individual retires, which I think he'd make $350,000 a year in retirement. So what happened to this was after a nuclear, I guess, wiped out the whole world in these series. And so when he was telling me and went on and on, he said, that was from radiation and too much radiation. And this thing was abnormal and deformed. And that's the way it grew like that. And I believe there's today like snakes they've seen that have two heads and other things. But he showed that to me and he said, this is who this individual is. But he's not those lizard looking things, a gecko. He's a kimono dragon, a little one. And one was as evil as can be. And when I saw this thing, this devouring stuff, I was reminded of the puppies, little beagles, that this monster and his labs, I think over 300, everything imaginable they did to him for testing. I hope you don't think it ended with puppies. Monsters like this have access to some of those labs. I don't know if this one would have access to that particular lab. Those people, they never leave. They're brilliant, but they never leave. And they're on this island and their life is luxury, but they never leave. The ones that do all that stuff, if they do, they're dead. So that was on this particular person. So I wanted to cover those things today because some of them happened within a day or two of when I broadcast on the 20th, and some have happened. I don't know when my last broadcast was. I'm hard to keep up with right now. But I wanted to come back to you and share that with you. Like I said, I'd rather be talking about Jesus. Most powerful, King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, compassionate, merciful. And we need the teaching to grow and mature so that we ourselves can be carriers of a restoration this year and of a refreshing. But we also need maturity so that when there is revival, we can help nurture babies and help nurture others that have come in and many that have probably listened to somehow or another and I, you know, it's like Luke, I think I meant at work with all of his he does once a week while he's in college. There are about 20 of them his age, even younger. And he's a witness there. He's a light. He's a good kid. And he'll ask him about church. And to the person, they say, we're not interested. They're all about money. And so I pray that we have the opportunity to tell them it's not about the money. It's not about titles. It's not about mantles. It's not about me living in some luxury place. It's about the Lord Jesus Christ and your eternal soul. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope to be back soon, but I know that the Lord wanted me to pass this along, and so I want to thank you. Father, I did as you wanted me to do, and I prayed to yield to you, to honor Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and to love your people, and to share truth with them, and to continue to keep them updated, Lord, not with the false narrative that is on mainstream media and what the false prophet is trying to say, but the truth that comes directly from your throne. And so help me, Lord, and help other, prophets or prophetesses or others that, Lord, you can use to share and to teach, and that it won't be about them, but it'll be about Jesus, and it will be about your body, Jesus. We love you. We thank you. May we honor you in all that we do. We love you, Jesus. Thank you again. As I have said each time, I pray for you. I pray for your families. Kimberly and I both do. And then Luke at night during our family devotions. I was thinking lately, we'll do an early family devotion, then they'll come upstairs and I'll be able to rest, sleep. But actually, the Lord visits a lot. So that's good. My book is filling up. And I pray for the eagle, the great eagle, the United States of America. And I pray for other nations around the world. But I'm called to this one, and I love it with a passion. As I've said, a veteran and a member of the Gold Star family. So thank you again, and may God bless.